joining us. Thank you very much to everybody who's coming in. It's great to have you all here. Hello, Alistair, hello, Kim, hello, Maria, how are you? Hi, Kay, how are you doing? I'm just starting to see people coming in. I will say what I always say, which has now become a mantra, which I hope to never have to say again after next year, which is, it would be so nice if we were in a conference room in a lovely hotel somewhere where after the session we can get together and go to the bar and actually meet in real life, because meeting in real life is just nothing like meeting in Zoom, as we discovered last week, actually being in a real life board meeting with real people, which was just awesome. So I am just delighted today to have this fantastic panel, who I'll introduce in just a second, of industry leaders and past EuRA presidents from the last decade. And what we're going to look at today is a decade of change. It's impossible to sit with a crystal ball and try and figure out what's coming next. I mean, let's face it, we were all sitting at the end of 2019 looking fairly confident about what 2020 was going to bring, and look how that worked out. So let's just say we'll try and look at some trends, what we see that might be coming, and hopefully we'll be able to expand this discussion when we meet together in Seville in March, April. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to this brilliant panel. I'm sure that everybody knows all of these people. I will start with Patrick Oman. Patrick Oman, Oman Consulting, currently sitting just outside Dublin. And great to have you here, Patrick. Thank you so much for taking part. Also, Lufton Gunston, lovely to see you sitting in Stockholm today. Great to see you, Nordic Relocation Group. Thank you very much for taking part. Andrew Scott, great to see you as well, in Cornwall today, in the southwest of the UK, joining us from Dwellworks. Thank you so much. Anita Meyer, always great to see you too, joining us from Brussels, outside of Brussels. And Anita is with Altair Global. Michelle, it's lovely to see you. Michelle Bramstoft, Copenhagen Relocations in Denmark. And last but not least, Tads Linden, sitting just down the corridor in England. So great to have you all with us. Just a little bit of housekeeping for everybody who's participating. If you would like to put a note into the chat box at any time, either you have a comment or a question, just remember to switch the Zoom default from host and panelists to everyone. It's a real quirk of Zoom's, but the initial default is that it will only send your message to myself and the other panelists. If you want everybody to see it, just flick down onto everyone. You can always use the Q&A as well. If you do use the Q&A, that then gets recorded and we then have access to that afterwards, but it's just as easy to use the chat box. We're going to talk about a lot of different stuff. So as I say, if you've got a comment you'd like to make, we would love to hear it. This is, our great EuRA community. The more sharing I think that we've been able to do over the last year and going forward, I think probably sharing and communication has been so critical this year and will continue to be so. So what I'm going to do first, if it's okay with you, can I ask you about your personal journeys over the last decade? And I'm going to start, if I may, with Michelle and Tad, because actually I think you're the only two people who are in the roles that you were in 10 years ago. Is that right, Michelle?
That is absolutely correct, Dom. Thanks. Yes. And it's changed a lot. That's for sure. I think that we have moved 3 times in the last 10 years.
Okay.
We moved to the International House on 1 floor, and then we moved downstairs. And as you know, moving is relocating. We were a little disoriented for a while. And we've grown as a company, and yeah, had to make some big adjustments during the past year, but the future is looking bright.
And this is what we're here to examine, isn't it? I mean, we're going to try and figure out, where we're going and what's happening. But I know that, we've spoken a lot, obviously, over the past year, and you've been busy right through, correct?
Yes, we have, because Denmark always, if you had a job and a work contract, you could come. Right. So if you had a worthy cause, you could come. And we're one of the first countries, I think, to open up more as well. So it's we've been lucky, and so we've kept busy. I'm not going to say that, it wasn't a hard year. It was, but it was challenging. That's the word I wanted to use. But we're coming through, and we can see that now Denmark is really what people want to come and live in this, our happy country. We have some private people who just want to move to Denmark.
Yeah, great, good.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Michelle. We'll catch up again in a bit. We're going to talk about all sorts of topics. Tad, you are in the same role that you were in 10 years ago, but big changes.
There have been lots of changes, not least we too relocated, only the once. But that was a challenge in itself, reducing all the paperwork to next to nothing. Basically, the archive is behind me and that's it. Whereas we used to have loads of it. Most of it is now in the cloud. But we too have grown. EuRA probably had 350 members 10 years ago. Now we have over 500.
Wow.
The conference, as everybody knows, has got bigger and bigger and bigger.
And where were we 10 years ago? Where were we in 2011?
10 years, 2000, about a little of Malta, but not Malta, Palma.
Palma, the Palma drama.
The Palma, the
Palma drama, yeah.
Palma 2.0.
Yeah.
Whereas we're now working our way to Seville 4.0.
Yeah.
Having changed it over and over again. And I suppose in a sense, well, certainly latterly what we've been doing has changed as well. We had to kind of reinvent what we were doing. I think for those of you actually moving people, you have still tried to continue moving and helping people. We suddenly had a situation where we could do nothing, literally. We couldn't run a conference, we couldn't do anything. So we have upskilled in certain ways. I mean, Dominic is now the interviewer of the century.
It's a job I never thought I'd have.
and we've you know, we've delivered stuff that we never thought we'd do before. And personally, certainly with my ARP hat on, I'm doing, which is the UK Association, I'm doing stuff I'd never have dreamed of doing. Lobbying Parliament, having a reception in City Hall in London. All these things. There have been so many changes, but you know, let them continue.
And we're going to talk further about the role of the associations, because I know as presidents, you know, past presidents of EuRA as well, it's going to be an interesting discussion just to have about what is the relevance of our associations, our trade bodies, and what we're doing. Patrick, can I come to you next? Always great to see you. We actually saw you in person last week, which was an absolute treat. How are you doing?
I have to say that pleasure was all mine last week.
It was great.
It was just so great to see you guys after so long. I really missed you. And my last 10 years, well, they divide very neatly. The first 5, I was selling relocation services very successfully. Most of the second half of the 10 years was selling the company, which I again did very successfully. And then I suppose I was asked by several people to help them with selling their companies. So I went from being a relocation services seller to a relocation company seller,
Yes,
and whether for myself or for anybody else. And I enjoy that, I have to say, because I always love doing a deal. And I don't want to be confused with the other deal maker, Mr. Trump, who always loved the
we won't do that.
But no, I always like the cut and thrust of selling, and you know, putting what I always felt was the best service forward, or putting the best product forward, and then delivering satisfaction. I get great satisfaction from other people's satisfaction. So that has been my 10 years.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it's been good. I enjoy it, I must say.
Thank you, Patrick. And we'll come back. There's a couple of things I'd love to pick up on there, so we'll come back to that in a bit. Also, can I come to you next? Always great to see you. So again, things have changed. Tell us about how the last 10 years have been for you.
Things have changed, absolutely. I think we had just opened our Gothenburg office about 10 years ago. So we're located in 3 places now, the 3 major cities or regions in Sweden. We've also moved offices a couple of times because we've needed to expand with the people we work with. And Today, I think the biggest change is, well, COVID is in itself one thing, what would you have to do technically to sort of be able to work and to function properly. But they're also, well, I think I lost myself now, so go to somebody else and then come back.
Okay, no worries. And I want to pick up on the whole tech thing. We're going to talk about that too,
Yes.
both in terms of the future and the past. Andrew, great to see you. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Again,
Good.
big
Glad to be here.
journey the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, it has. Amazing. You know, just kind of thinking back, you know, 10 years ago, I was looking after the kind of destination services side for a, you know, a solely UK-based DSP. And we were then fortunate enough to catch the eye of some of the good folks at Dwellworks. And then we kind of, you know, moved out into the sort of the fast lane, and you know, in terms of growth and expansion, it's been you know, really exciting. You know, and never would I have thought that I'd be doing kind of what I do now. So I'm, you know, I wouldn't say I pinch myself every day, but pretty much. I mean, it's been great, and seeing, you know, the industry, you know, change and develop. You know, some of it for the good, some of it, you know, are things you got to, you know, learn and move on from. But no, it's been really exciting. So
I mean, it's very interesting because obviously we were talking before the call about the changes that we've all seen within the industry, and that is a whole conference, not just a Zoom session. That is a conference in itself. Yeah. And we will be, you know, looking at some of those shifts when we come to Seville. We've just designed the program. So thank you so much, Andrew. Anita, it's great to see you again. It's been a journey. Do you want to talk us through a bit of your journey?
Yeah, it's a bit like Andrew, right? 10 years ago, I was running a medium-sized relocation company in Belgium. And then 2 years ago, in the middle of COVID, I jumped on the global wagon. And it's a journey of learning, of discovering new alternative ways of looking at it, and with a big technical machine, marketing machine around me, all the things that are prepared professionally. It's a totally different thing, but I did enjoy it then. I do enjoy it now. And when I look back at 2011, in fact, I was recovering from the 2010 Palma shock.
Yeah.
No EuRA conference? No, that can't happen. And then in 2021, I'm trying to kick myself to where has 2020 EuRA gone to? What? So I can suggest that we already start a plan to skip 2030. I cannot live through that 3 times.
Oh my gosh, it's every decade. We've got to be really careful. You're so right. That's a good point. Thank you for that. That's made me quite scared. So thank you so much, all of you. If we can, let's just talk about a few of the touch points that we talked about prior to going live. Let's start with tech. Tech has revolutionized our industry in the last 10 years, from something that was pretty well seen as a fantastic luxury for those people who were really into technology to an absolute mainstay of day-to-day operations. Andrew, can I start with you on that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's changed and probably is changing, I think, even more so now at a faster pace. I mean, it's an industry that, you know, if we look at other industries from a technology point of view, you know, relocation was, you know, very much around, you know, people and people meeting people and doing things very much more on a face-to-face basis, and a lot of that will remain, and absolutely that it should. But there kind of wasn't a real drive, you know, in terms of, I think, you know, making businesses more efficient through technology. But in the last 5 years or so, I mean, it literally, you know, has been turbocharged. And I think now, you know, there's much more, I guess, focus around how can technology help, you know, the customer experience. I mean, we used to always talk about, and still do, about, you know, great customer service, which is, you know, we kind of say it's like the ticket to the dance. That's just a given. That's what's expected. But it's how can you affect and give a great experience, you know, and technology, I think, can very much kind of help with that. And that's what I think lots of, organizations in our industry are, spending lots of money and, getting lots of great people to look at how can we do that? How can we make sure that we're still absolutely relevant for what the customer wants, but understanding what is relevant. The customers, again, in my perception, have changed. People, you can find out absolutely anything you want to know at the press of a few clicks these days. But how can you still kind of make it relevant? How can you deliver things? Because people are used to having everything, when they want it. So I think there's a long way to go, but I think it's it's exciting times, and as we know, there are different types of organizations who have come into our industry, which I think is a good thing. It's kind of making us all sit up and look at, well, what can we do? How can we become more relevant to the customer, provide that better experience, and make ourselves more efficient. So
I'm looking forward to the APIs so we can work even more efficiently. That's been already, how many years have we been talking about APIs?
Oh, since 2012, 2013, definitely. Yeah.
So that's where we need the next big push.
Do you know, it's really interesting. It's so interesting that you say that, because we're seeing these APIs now come into like everyday life. Like our internet went down, we couldn't switch on a light because Alexa wouldn't work with the plugs and things. Now that is where the next thing is going to be in mobility, I would think. Do you think that? Does anyone have a comment?
I mean, I think, I suppose there's for a lot of us, being able to connect to our, customers through technology, which is through APIs, and I can only kind of speak for ourselves. If you're working with the RMCs, that's a big driver, because that's that means data can flow immediately, and you can become more efficient, and as importantly is hopefully reduce any kind of human error, etc. But in terms of, I guess, how we all live, pretty much everything on our phone, every one of your apps is an API, and we've had them for years and years. So I think it's time that we need to, in this industry, be on that kind of same plane as everybody else with regards to it's become a norm.
And I know also that was a big thing for you too, right? You were.
Well, it was. And the thing is that we need to adapt to what the clients and customers are asking for. And the only issue I have with it is the fact that there's so many different ways of communicating with each other today. We're talking about WhatsApp, we're talking about Skype, or if you're texting or whatever we choose to do. Yeah. And the issue we have sometimes there is trying to keep our clients informed or copied in to these conversations that are happening, because it's happening so very quickly today. And otherwise, I think it's great. We're doing a lot of visual showings today because they haven't been able to come into Sweden because the borders have been closed, as everywhere else in the world.
Right.
But we've continued to work, but using these options that are available to us now all over the world. What's great during the pandemic is that we've all had to learn how to use them.
Yes.
So this,
forced to.
You're scared, it's new, it's scary, you're not really sure that you can work it out, but now we've all really had to learn. No matter who you are in the company, you need to know how it functions.
And Anita, from your point of view, are you seeing that as very much a client-led thing, or is it something that you're actually doing organizationally to lead the clients forward?
The latter.
Right.
We tried, like Austin said, try to get them all on the same page. And it's not only clients, it's also the providers, also the authorities, how you prepare the files for a work permit, for example. It all had to go by mail, and it was lots of paperwork. Now it's just a click away. And yeah, customers, we try to teach them not to use emails anymore, to be on platforms, because emails are a big GDPR issue.
Sure.
So it's everywhere.
It's really interesting. And I mean, Tad, we're looking at this at the moment in terms of the technology that we're going to be needing to use and employ through events post-COVID, because obviously, you know, that's going to become a big thing. You're actually going to Seville next week, aren't you?
I am indeed, yes.
And that will be one of the big conversations you're going to have to be having.
Exactly. What the restrictions may or may not be, hopefully minimal, but you never know. But you're talking about technology. Here we are on a Zoom. Again, I know. I mean, Zooms are here to stay. There's no question about it, or Teams or whatever. And that's another problem, is that depending on what platform you actually operate, sometimes it works with Zoom, but not with Teams, or it works with this or not with the other. So sometimes it gets a bit complicated actually managing to communicate with people. But we've all got so used to this that a common old phone call is like, was slightly refreshing to actually speak to someone and not actually see them.
Or the other trend that I've seen over the last 10 years was 10 years ago, we just picked up the phone. Now we make an appointment to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Yes, we make an appointment. You're quite right.
Yeah.
But I think that luckily, I think what COVID has taught us is there comes a point where this kind of communication has to stop, and we actually have to see each other.
Yeah.
So in other words, we have been saturated by this to such a degree that we will use it more carefully in future.
That's a very interesting point, and something we will come on to talking about sustainability. But I mean, one of the great things about Zoom and Teams and all of these platforms is the impact it does have on the sustainability of things like business travel. So we'll come on to that in a minute. A couple of really nice comments in the chat box. Thanks, Tracy. A good point, Andrew, about staying relevant to customers who want an experience that's forever changing. So true. And we're going to look at that in a minute in terms of changes to assignments. And Rob Fletcher, thank you for this. Something to ponder on. Car wash. There's an example of a service that went down a technology route but has ended up with more hand car wash facilities than you can count. And you are so right. An absolute revolution in an industry. I mean, especially here in the UK, it's huge. So I would love to now touch on, Patrick, I'd love to bring you in, because we were having a very interesting conversation yesterday about the impact that COVID's had all across the HHG sector, which I know is one of your big points of experience across your career.
Well, I suppose I started off as a mover, and I've never been able to leave that part of the relocation business. You know, it's the one bit of it that once you're into it, there's no getting out of it. But we've had a decade of change, and the change has been accelerated tremendously by COVID. All the things that were sort of gradually happening were suddenly thrust upon us once the 18-month lockdown began. And Brexit compounded all that, because one of the biggest operators in Europe, I mean, the biggest economies in Europe, are the biggest, and certainly for the United States, which is the big driver of relocation, the UK was the great partner to the United States, and for the UK to opt out of Europe has driven huge change in the moving business. The sort of stuff that we're all faced with at the moment, such as driver shortages, they had been going on for years. It's just that now, with everything else, they become more obvious. Somebody mentioned earlier the fact that the ports have become congested and causing huge delays for household goods deliveries. Well, you know, that had been gradually happening, but now with no drivers to clear the ports, the containers can't get in, and it's driven up cost. And moving costs have been driven down for many years with the concentration of all the booking with a very small number of bookers, and also the consolidation of all the movers. There was more and more consolidation in the industry. So costs were being driven down, but now they're being driven up again by these external pressures. And it's interesting to see where that's going now, because there's, you know, prices have suddenly begun to increase for moving, and whether that'll drive volumes down, I don't know. but now with volumes going down, there's more air freight, and more air freight means more money because air freight is traditionally more expensive. So the change is accelerating.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I mean, it is. We were talking with Ray De Silva in the Spring Summit from the International Association of Movers, and he was saying then, and this is back in April, May, that container costs had gone up by 15 times over COVID. So, you know, these are big questions for our industry. Again, I was talking to John Harmon, and he said, you know, one of his kids had said, do they not have furniture in Berlin? You know, do you have to ship it across the world? It is going to be a question that's asked. And on that score, Andrew, can I come to you? Because again, I know one of the, you know, several areas of our industry, all of our industry was hit in some way or another, but some were very, very intensely hit, immigration and corporate housing. Being that, you know, your organization has a very big seat within the corporate housing space, where do you see that part of the industry moving forward, and is it now?
I mean, it is definitely moving forward at a pace now, or at a certainly a greater pace. But we kind of tend to look at it into, I mean, whilst the product and the delivery and the experience is the same for whichever kind of guest, you have people who are on a business travel, and then you have people who are on, say, a mobility move, and it tends to be generally the length of stay is different. So the business travel, you know, which was of significant volume for, you know, many organizations, literally, as you know, the bottom was ripped out of it. There's been hardly any. That's starting to pick up, but it's you know, small numbers in comparison, or is for us. The mobility side has stayed, if I say a bit more constant, I mean, definitely, you know, volumes reduced significantly. I think for, you know, a number of organizations, and particularly the operators, so those are the, you know, the people who actually have or manage the apartments in the relevant towns and cities, they've found that the length of stays were being increased more, and often because people could not necessarily move from, you know, the country or the town or the city they were in, and also people who may have arrived were then not necessarily in a position to go out and find, you know, their long-term housing. So, you know, that kind of helped, you know, in terms of revenue for a lot of organizations. But, you know, in the last 3 months, we've seen, you know, a significant increase in inquiries and bookings. So still nowhere near, you know, where it was in 2019, but it's certainly on a, you know, a fairly good trajectory. And business travel, I mean, we'll kind of wait and see. I mean, a lot of organizations, you know, are saying that, you know, some have travel bans, some don't have bans, but, you know, people are having to go through, you know, various other checks and balances before, you know, business trips, you know, are sanctioned. And again, from what we hear going forward, the view seems to be there'll probably be less business trips, but they may be for a longer period. So, you know, people will try and accomplish more than, you know, the quick hour flight to Frankfurt for a one-day meeting, you know. And to be honest, you know, I was guilty of doing those kind of things, but as an organization, we won't be doing that going forward. And another thing, interestingly, when I was at the business travel show, the other week, there were a number of organizations who were talking about, you know, looking at a policy where, you know, historically people would just fly, you know, even into country, but now what about, you know, using rail, you know, particularly if you're in Europe, you know, and a lot of that is linked to, you know, sustainability, etc. So, which I think, you know, are things others may want to talk about as well.
Well, that leads me very, very neatly. Thank you very much, Andrew. That's a perfect segue into the next thing I'd like to think about, which is changes to assignment structures. I mean, you said there about, you know, business trips becoming longer, achieving more, so that you only have to do you only have to do 2 flights as opposed to 7. In terms of things like the impact of COVID, and even particularly the impact of sustainability, do you predict, or are you even seeing changes to assignment structures? Anita, can I ask you that first? Should everybody else just chip in?
sustainability and the influence on the number of people or on the assignment types? What is?
Well, both really. I mean, I was thinking more about assignment types. Like, for example, I sort of see commuter assignments being turned into more long-term assignments, if that's the sustainability issue at the core of a company's policy.
Yeah, we do see a change there. Even on our company's side, we now have an entire team working on sustainability issues because it's also a big part of the RFPs today. Sustainability is also part of the duty of care, so where it's very linked, and relocation is all about duty of care. It's what we do for a living, kind of.
Topic, yeah.
It's also one of the questions that was raised recently because of that sustainability. People might relocate a little less and they work from home. Will you bring them when they're working from home in Canada today to working from home in Belgium? Does that make sense? And those questions are being raised, and they are linked also to sustainability, not only to the number or the kind of assignments. It's, again, in everything we do, this is one of the questions that is linked to whatever we do, whether it's inside a company, whether it's towards the clients to show that we're very concerned about it, whether it's towards the customer. Some of our consultants have done housings on a bike or on a walking tour if the people are willing to live in the city center. So yeah, it's definitely affecting the type of assignment, probably also the number of assignments, although some of our clients are so booming and sending so many people over, especially to the UK and Ireland. So it's very contradictory at the same time.
It's hard to see the trend because it's so contradictory. But it's good to hear that you're doing home findings on the bike. I just love it when we're able to do that here. It's such a big bike culture.
Doing a home search on a bike. I mean,
it does. It makes sense. And also, I remember, I mean, when I first came to Stockholm to work on the conference with you, you were one of the first early adopters of using a complete hybrid fleet at the time.
Yes, and I mean, but that was important because I think it's been important to look at our environment. In this country, there's always a lot of talk about, thinking about your environment and how you do things. I mean, nowadays, before I would fly down to the different offices for meetings, it's all done on Teams nowadays. But our new CEO, Victoria, goes down, she uses the train. I used to fly. She uses the train to go down to Gothenburg or Malmö. And so everything is done through Teams, but we still need to have that face-to-face meeting. That is still a very, very important thing. So we kind of have to do a mixture of it all. But I must say that we do a lot of Skype viewings now for people coming in. So depending on where they are in the company, what they are entitled to do, what services are for them, we still know that people would rather come and look at the housing themselves. But in many cases now, when it's younger assignees coming in, we do Skype showings or we do something through another option for them. So we're finding a combination more and more. Basically trying to suit whatever needs the customer has.
And I think that works really well. And I mean, one of the trends that I think we will see going forward is much more of that. But what's interesting to me is like your consultants doing a Skype showing of an apartment is a far more forensic operation than just looking at it on Rightmove or Zillow or any of those platforms, because you don't know where it is, you don't know the neighborhood, you don't know proximities. So it's a great adjunct to what is actually still a very human skill.
But the thing is, we're not really saving that much time because we are out there doing the viewing.
Yeah, so exactly. It's not saving you any time at all.
It's not like this is a good way of trying to save money for a client. It's really trying to give them what we would normally do with them if we had them tagging along.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have to know that, looking at something through a film is not the same as actually being there and walking through a property.
No. Very interesting, very interesting. I remember talking to Christine Martin some time ago when we were, we were doing the interview series, and she said, what we do when we do a remote viewing with somebody in an apartment, we don't show them what's good about it. We show them what's the challenge. Yeah. The storage might not be so great. The balcony might be a little bit small, not to put them off, but because you can make anything look great on film, right? I mean, you really, really can. Some fantastic, Robert, thank you so much. EuRA members are desperate to get on planes to meet face-to-face in Seville. We crave face-to-face interaction, and nothing will change for assignees. Human beings by nature are explorers. That's a very, very, very good point. So I would just like to look quickly, I'm just aware of the time, we're doing okay. So duty of care, I had a fantastic conversation with Tracy, who's on the call yesterday, about duty of care. We're going to develop a module on this. Looking at it in its broadest sense, it encompasses so many aspects of the relocation process. But as we were saying before the call, to me, one of the things that has been, in the back of my mind since I joined this amazing industry has been the moral imperative that I think employers have to take care of the people that they're moving around the world, given that, you look at the Homes and Ra scale, and it's Homes and Ray scale, and the relocation just tops, it just tops everything. If anything's going to have a really big impact on well-being, it's going to be being relocated to another country. So can I just ask, who would like to start in terms of the way that you see the growth and importance of duty of care post-COVID? Do you see it or not? Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, absolutely we do. And I think it's not, it's not something that people haven't been focused on. It's just, it has now so much more of a focus, I think, from corporates, and because, they need the comfort and to a certain extent be able to prove that everything, in the relevant kind of downline chains, whoever is going to be involved in some shape or form with, one of their, valued members of their team is being looked after properly. And as I say, historically, it had always been just an assumption that, well, everyone will be doing the right thing. Whereas now, it's, you have to prove that you're doing the right thing. And I think what I've seen is, that kind of audit trail has made everyone just put more focus on actually, are we doing the best that we can? And that's literally across, our industry, I would say, every kind of business line. So it's got a huge focus, and for organizations, again, not saying that we didn't all want to look after our own people. Absolutely. Everybody does and did. I think it's just, it's got more focus now, in terms of making sure that, there are proper policies in place and they're being followed. And how do you make sure they're being followed is because you need to, follow up on it. You need to audit it and get feedback, and things like that. So I think it's just got much more focus, for all the right reasons than it had before.
And I mean, just again, looking to the future, Patrick, we were saying before the call, there's these things are incredibly important. Duty of care, all of the aspects of the educational piece, the barriers to assignment, the partner support, all of those pieces that sit within that circle are a hard sell in our industry.
Well, the people in our industry are distinguished by one common feature, and that is that they all love to see their clients, the people they're taking care of, they all like to see them well satisfied. They like to do the very best job they can. They feel for them. They want them to be happy. They want them to get the best place to live, or they want to help their family. Where I see it now going is, as Andrew said, all of that's being audited. So it's being measured just how well you do at keeping the employee happy, because the employer wants to know that this is being done, and wants to be able to prove to himself and to his clients that he is taking care of his people, and that's where it's going now. It's being quantified, audited, and sort of formalized. We were doing it forever.
I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, Michelle, because I want to come to you as well. That's okay.
It's also in Denmark for the past 10 years, we're such a small country. We need the talent to come here to fill the gaps in the job market. And not only does that produce a lot of innovation and really make the economy boom. So there's been a big focus on it by big businesses here. And that's one of the reasons we have the International House, so that you can do a lot of administrative things in one go. But that whole aspect of attracting and retaining the talent, I mean, I think you mentioned that Steve Krein, he talks about that and how important relocation services are, which I think that's only going to become more important in the future as the talent pool gets smaller, and companies are realizing too that they have to offer this and they have to be compliant too.
Absolutely. And again, what's so fascinating about that to me, and you know, what we're going to be keeping, obviously all of us as an organization, as your organizations, an eye on over the coming years, is where political will is affecting that process. So I mean, you said, Michelle, that Denmark sees the political value in that, in saying we need skilled people. Canada has done the same thing. Canada has said we're open. You know, we're open to skill. We need to bring people in to grow our economy. And then you have other countries who choose to maybe not stay in the trade agreements that they wanted to before, mentioning nothing at all, Brexit, no. Where you have, you know, a very different political will and a very political. Also, can I come to you? Because again, Sweden has always had the notion of openness in terms of talent and attracting people to come in, right?
Well, they have. And I mean, I think no matter who you work with, what you do, you try to do a good job. And an important part of that is to make people happy and to feel that they've been given, that the services that we have provided are actually within the scope that they have ordered from us. And also that going above and beyond a little bit to make sure that you really have them on board as to what we're doing for them, to secure that transformation or that transfer to Sweden in this case. Just as important is to make sure that I have the right staff and that I manage my staff in the way that they want to stay on. So we have a lot of people who have been with us for over 10 years. And I find that to be very, very, you know, that's an important aspect in trying to keep the group together and to have that company sort of culture that they can then provide good services for the clients coming in. So it's a combination, but definitely Sweden, definitely we need to follow rules and regulations, but you need that little extra.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's extremely interesting how, again, you know, we were talking about, for example, duty of care, linking that to talent retention, linking that then to barriers to assignment. And it's quite a few years ago now, but I remember talking with Yvonne Kwai, who was the Global Mobility Director at the World Bank, and she had just carried out a big piece of research, and the single percentage that was highest in a barrier to assignment was partner support. That, you know, you're talking about, you know, high. I mean, and again, are you seeing that? Anita, can I ask you that? I mean, when it's coming in from the clients, do they struggle to get the right person in the right place because there are these huge barriers to assignment coming up?
Definitely over the last 10 years, that was a growing need. Now, recently, there was a study in the Leuven area. That's the only international house that we have in Belgium, is in Leuven, with the same idea. They came to Copenhagen to take a look at.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. And we went there. We went to Leuven too. Yeah.
Beautiful city, Leuven.
So that was the inspiration as well. And they've done a study because they have an industry group of the biggest multinationals around that area, where the people that work in international mobility contribute to the research. And they've all been interviewing the expats that they have on board. And the number one priority was spouse support.
Wow.
Biggest problem. The study is 2 years old. It's a before COVID study.
Sure.
So my next question is, well, just now, this coming Sunday, we're bringing in a couple. He's going to work for Deloitte, and she's starting to work for a US company. They come from the US, and she's starting her job in Belgium, coming from the US for a US company.
Wow.
So remote working facility that has now grown so much over the last 8 years. Will that make it a bit easier on the spouses? Because
very good point.
Good point.
finding a job locally is very difficult. You need a language, you need another work permit, finding the right employer who sees that value and wants to invest in it. It's not easy. It's one of the few countries in the world where spouses can work without any problem. In other countries, that is a problem, I heard.
Huge
but still, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's the same here. If it's easy to work, if you have a work permit through the main applicant, the partner can work. But I have an example of a woman who is looking for a job. She says, I can stay at my current job in Germany for maybe a year, but that's all that particular job is going to allow me to work remotely with. So there's a, I think it depends on the industry too, or, you know, what your skill is.
And what you're doing. I mean, that's such an important point. And I think going forward, this is something that we really are going to see a lot of change in. And I think also it's one of those things that's going to cause huge compliance needs within our industry, because, you know, like you say, Anita, you've got this person coming in to work remotely in Belgium. Countries will have different rules about that. Where is salary being paid? Is that person actually working in Belgium? You know, these are going to be big issues we're going to be talking about, I think, for the next few years, certainly. I'm going to end with a question to all of you. You are all presidents and past presidents of EuRA. Tad, you are the CEO of the trade body of EuRA. Patrick, you brought up at the beginning the relevance of the trade bodies, EuRA, FIDE, Omni, WERC, CERC. Do you want to just pontificate a bit?
Well, you know, for all of the trade associations, I think that the big feature of every year was the conference. I think everybody loves to go to the conference, and as somebody said, we're social animals, and we all like to get together once a year. And I don't think any Zoom meeting is going to replace that. And I think it's fantastic that you, Dom and Tad, and your board have kept EuRA together. I think that has been a great achievement. And to have EuRA still intact at the end of these 2 years without a conference is worthy of congratulations. And I'm really looking forward to Seville, because that'll be, or not Seville.
London.
Yeah.
London.
Oh, London at Christmas.
Dublin, why not?
Dublin, Seville, we've got a whole raft of new places to go.
But to get back to your original question, the relevance of the associations, EuRA is working hard on achieving it. I think other associations are finding that, you know, their members can communicate with each other more quickly, faster, efficiently, with all of the technology. And that is a challenge for them, because they don't have that same conference get together that I think we have.
Sorry, also.
No, I think that, you know, these conferences are extremely important, because that's where a lot of us get a little extra inspiration. You hear somebody else that shares their experience, and you bring that with you back to the office. I was going to say that was the main thing, sitting on the EuRA board way back when. I would always come home with something new that somebody had shared. And another thing is all the potential possibilities of meeting your clients there, be it an RMC or other relocation companies. Mm-hmm. That's really where you can do it, because at home here in Sweden, I don't go to one of my competitors to say, you know, how would you do this? That's not going to happen. We'll talk about other issues, but at the EuRA conference, definitely, it is important. And it's a very nice group of people, let's face it.
It is. That's what's so interesting about going to other people's conferences. You come back to the EuRA conference and it's like It's like putting a warm blanket around you on a cold winter's night.
It is.
It is. It's amazing. Tad, I'm going to just bring that back to you, because I mean, obviously, what we set out to achieve last March, when we were all, you know, rabbits in the headlights, was, you know, not one member of EuRA would leave the association, to a very large extent, and to our huge surprise, gratitude, and you know, loyalty from the members. That's pretty well been the case, right?
Absolutely. In 2020, yes, we lost a few members, but we lost more members in 2018,
which is
a normal year. But we also find that at the moment we are losing members for various different reasons.
Mergers and acquisitions.
Mergers and acquisitions being the top of my hit list.
Big thing, yeah.
You know, we love our members, but we don't like them buying each other, because that has a financial effect. But by the same token, what one would not have expected during a pandemic would have been people actually wanting to join the association, because the whole point, as everyone says, you know, the conference is the pivotal thing. And what have we blooming well done? We've kept cancelling it, and other things we've cancelled, all these face-to-face events, but people keep joining. Not as many perhaps as joined in the previous years, but it is quite gratifying to pick up new people as time goes along. And I think just as an organisation, we have, you know, our duty of care is to the membership. And if we hadn't done it properly, we wouldn't still have roughly 500 plus members. I think that's it. We do it our way. We do it the EuRA way. And if the EuRA way works, well, good. And long may it continue.
I think what's been interesting from the point of view of talking to so many of our members over the last year, which has frankly kept me sane, has been the growth of awareness of what actually happens that isn't just the conference. You know, I mean, Renee, you just put a great comment in there. The associations play pivotal roles. And what I've noticed that compliance and holding EGQS, which has some of the environmental and social policy, and that's becoming a requirement and a guiding tool for our industry. And that's very much what we were talking about last week at our board meeting, and what we will be going on to talk about in the board meeting in May, is the relevance of what we're doing. Every project we undertake has to have relevance to the members. We have a test for it, and being able to move forward with things like you say, Renee, that, you know, a more robust sustainability policy within the quality seal, more training for members on the really important pinch points at the moment, things like compliance, things like anti-money laundering, things like sustainability, making sure that we are keeping those projects as relevant as they possibly can be for the membership is key to our moving forward. But more key than anything else, of course, is moving forward to a conference in Seville. When we end the session, we can actually get together, because it's crazy. If anybody has any comments, please put them into the chat box. Otherwise, all that really remains for me to say is the session is being recorded. I will send out the recording link to the 99 people who were signed up for today, and then everybody else will get it through LinkedIn and through YouTube and through bulletins in a week or so. But Patrick Oman, Ursula Löfgren-Gunston, Andrew Scott, Anita Meyer, Michelle Bramstoft, and Tad. Oh, hang on, a couple of comments. Thank you all. I'll come back to say that in a minute. Adrian, thank you. Vicarious liability is a topic that lawyers will be leveraging soon. Those corporates who give an assignee a lump sum only and it isn't spent wisely will be held to account. Relocation professionals can help corporates avert this issue. Adrian, very wise words. And this is, again, something that as an association, we need to keep pushing that message out. All of us as individuals, as professionals in this incredible industry, you know, duty of care, lump sum, the two things don't go together to me. Patrick, Gorsa, Andrew, Anita, Michelle, Tad, thank you so much for being part of today. Thank you to everybody who has joined us. It's always great to see you, even if it's only in a list of attendees. It's great to have you here. Take care, everybody. The next briefing we've got coming up will be an update on Africa, which will be on the 28th of October. You'll be receiving stuff on that. Renee is going to take part in that, which is great. And then coming up on the 16th of November, we've got a fantastic session on sustainability on the circular economy, so don't miss that one. But again, we'll be sending you out all of the various information about that. But in the meantime, my brilliant panel, thank you so much for taking
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Great to see you. We will see you in Seville.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody who's attended today, we will see you very soon. Take care.
See you
everyone.
soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.